Good evening, friends. This is Tirtha Pratim. I am serving as the director of the Space Science program in the ISRO headquarters. So, in this capacity, our office has to orchestrate all the scientific activities of the Indian Space Research Organization. And my journey has not been only as a scientist, but also has experienced an amalgamation of literature, music, and science. And today, this evening, I would like to share some of my realization and experiences. So it all started with a very humble question in my childhood, and that was the trigger of the entire chain reaction which I am going to speak about. The question was like this: what is the real color of my room? When it was lit with a candle, it was looking something different. When it was lit with an incandescent light, it is still different. And in the natural so-called sunlight, it is looking still different. What is the color of my robe? Nobody could answer me. And then this question sedimented to some other question. Is my red equal to your red? And not necessarily my red will be your red. Then how do we all agree that it is red? Is there any hidden connection between all of us? Then I grew, and um, when I was around 10 years old, I was studying in the St. Lawrence High School in Kolkata, and somebody asked me, knowing my inclination towards instruments, musical instruments, which musical instrument would you like to learn? I said tabla. Why tabla? I was not having much of expressive power. I was telling the combination of two sounds make it interesting. You know, tabla has got two sounds, so that makes it interesting. But I was not knowing what made me think in that line. So there was one question about the reality. What was the color of my room, real color of my room? And acquisition of two types of sounds from tabla, and was there any hidden connection? So it took me a few hours until I went to my college, St. Xavier's College, and where I have studied physics, honors, and the journey began in search of the hidden connection. And the first thing which I was very much attracted to was the quantum philosophy of observer-dependent reality. And I started my appreciation that the observer-dependent reality, that is, reality is not objective, it is a subjective reality, led to the concept of the oneness of the seer and the seen, and which in turn bifurcated to two beautiful concepts. One concept is the concept of duality in nature. One is the wave particle duality, and another concept is the uncertainty principle. And then when I was in the high school, I started learning tabla. My first guru was my grandfather, Pramod Ranjan Das, and currently I am learning under the tutelage of Guru Mahadevan Kher. And in between, I was very much fortunate to have been blessed by the Benares Gharana Master Pandit Santa Prasad ji. And in 2004, I joined the Indian Space Research Organization. And for 2 years, I worked in the launch vehicles, big rockets, also the sounding rockets. Some experiences with radars also happened. I will tell you later. So in 2008, I had my first assignment fulfilled. I was working in the Moon Impact Probe in Chandrayaan-1, which was the first human-made object from Asia which has been impacted on the south pole of the moon. And I had a significant contribution to understand the composition of the tenuous atmosphere of the moon in the sunlit side. And then you name any science mission which has gone up in 2008. I have been fortunate enough to have been a part of all these missions, either as a capacity of the team member or with the capacity of, principal investigator. I have been the principal investigator in the Chase-2 experiment, one of the experiment which measured the composition of the moon's atmosphere in Chandrayaan-2. In Mars orbital mission, I have contributed. So all these contributions have led to some discovery kind of findings in terms of the composition of the exosphere of Mars, exosphere of the Moon, how the connection between Sun and those planets happen, so on. And in recently Chandrayaan-3 mission, I have worked as the science program predictor for the scientific planet. I'm not going to tell all of these things to you today. Today, we will delve in something more interesting. So I was studying in St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, when I was studying physics. And then two questions started getting matured. One question was, can certainty lead to creativity? And is there a symmetry in creation? So this quantum philosophy of the observer dependent reality, which bifurcated to uncertainty principle and symmetry, has triggered my chain reaction in course of time. Coming to uncertainty, as a scientist, I know how the uncertainty principle has been responsible in the creation itself. As somebody who appreciates music, I know had uncertainty not been there, music would not have been music. As a writer, I know had everything been certain, it will not build a story. And coming to symmetry, lots of symmetry in different manifestations. Now, entities manifest as matter and waves. There has been a symmetry in the manifested and the unmanifested. If you take a pendulum, sometimes it is fully potential energy and sometimes it is fully kinetic energy, rest and motion. So you see duality there. Also, you see the duality in the formless and the form. Whatever you say today, big mountains, big trees, big so and so, all this can be broken down to molecules. Molecules can be broken down to atoms. Atoms can in turn be broken to subatomic particles. Subatomic particles also can be broken to something more fundamental. And when you go to something more and more fundamental, you go to the quantum field theory, which speaks about excitations of different fields, the quantized fields, and their fluctuations. And those are processes. So processes are giving rise to particles, and therefore something unmanifested is giving rise to the manifested universe. Translate this concept to music. So in music, I will take the example of tal because I have learned tal, rhythm. At the lowest level, you have sounds, dha, din, ta, kat, etc. The next level, you build tal. And in that still next level, you have compositions made of different tals. Come to the sound, go back to my childhood, the triggering question. Why tabla? Two sounds, duality in sound. One sound which is played in the left hand is in the left hand is masculine, the paya, and the right hand Dharpada plays the tabla. It is the feminine version. So duality. When it comes to the tal itself is a composite word. Tanda and the lasya, many of you know. Tanda is masculine, lasya is feminine, tal. When it comes to composition, it is all about conversation. Compositions are composed as conversations. Let us give an example. The famous Delhi Gharana Kaida. Ghina tete ghina thate dina ghina tete ghina. How did you dare to step out? Dhatre kada dhagina tete ghina dhake dina kada. Whatever you say, it wasn't said. Ghina tete ghina take dina ghina tete ghina. Who told you it's your business? Dhatre kada dhagina tete ghina dhake dina. Whatever comes in my way, I will handle. So if you compose the whole thing, so this chain reaction continued, and then the music started ensuring or inspiring in my literature. So my Radibu with Tal continued, and when I was speaking about Tal, I came to know Tal has got 10 lives. Kal margat pyanjane graha jati kalalaya. Yati prastar kashyeti tal prana dashaspeta. 10 lives are there of tal. Now, each and every life can individually become a TEDx talk. How it has led to different concepts in literature. But let me tell you, all this have got some connection with the wildlife. The way a flower blooms, remains bloomed for a certain time, the way a snake crawls, the way a deer dance, the way a butterfly hops from one flower to the other, all this collectively has something to say with these 10 lines of a tal. And I will not tell all these 10 plans. I will cite only one example as a case study. Yati is one example which tells about the speech modulation of a tal during a rendition. Suppose you are given 30 minutes to play a certain tal, a tabla lehra of 30 minutes. So the question is speed modulation. So let us see how this has inspired my literature. One yati is called samajyati, means in the y-axis I plotted time between two beats, dha, dhin or dhadhin. Time between two beats at the y-axis time of rendition. This is an example of the uniform speed of rendition, sama. Then you have sarit, slowest to start with, and then fastest at the end. Then we have Medanga, fastest at the beginning, fastest at the end. In between it is slow. Then you have Damaru, slowest, fastest, slowest. This kind of a modulation. Gopucha, fastest, going to the slowest. And then this concept has been borrowed to literature, in my understanding. To some extent, it is coming in this lecture also. Chapter and pace of storytelling. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow. So whenever you make some changes, accelerations happen in storytelling and good things happen that you will understand when you read a novel. So how science has inspired my literature? Do atoms have minds? I was thinking so, I think so. Atoms do have minds. So like the way I spoke about different um, layers of music, literatures also have certain similar individual characters, their interactions at the plot of the story, and human psychology plays a major role when you weave a story. And coming to science and psychology, if you take an example of an atom, which is also having the properties of matter and the wave, isolated atom you can compare as the id in psychology without any interaction with the rest of the universe. The two atoms who bring together, their wave functions start overlapping. And when the wave functions start overlapping, their individual behaviors go. And this is ego in psychology, which is a kind of social behavior. And when you have many of them in the framework of a, say, block of a story, it is a superego, which is a constraint. And then there is a story on radars. So my career, when I was working on the radars, so there was a 72 element phased array radar having 6 into 12 configuration. And I was asked to prepare phase shifters, coaxial cables for phase-based array antenna. 18 megahertz leads you an electrical length of 16.6 meter. And I was asked to cut the cable at different phases, 30 degree, 45 degrees, 60 degree, and so on. The problem is when you do it in the conventional technique, you will have an error of plus minus 5 degree and 45 degree. It could be anything between 40 degree to 50 degree. Then I borrowed a concept from music by tabla. There's a concept called laikadi. You're having the simplest form, you're having a 4-beat pattern, say dhage nati, 4-digit, and you're having a 3-beat pattern, dha dhin na. How will you play this? How to fit the 4-beat pattern in the 3-beat pattern? So you have to increase the speed by 4 by 3. Very simple example, right? That is something more difficult. This concept was borrowed to the radar technique. Take the uncut cable, measure the length, and see how much of the phase shift is happening at 18 megahertz, and see at what frequency the desired phase change comes. Give it a name, dummy frequency. Use a formula. Formula I have not moved here. Cut the length. Accuracy is this 0.01 and 45 degrees. Okay, then do structure string. So when I was about to end my discussion with you, let me tell you something interesting. Innovation continues. Those who have studied physics, you know about Feynman diagrams. In the Feynman diagram, we have the Schrodinger wave equation. When solved, it gives you a complex solution, and it has got an amplitude, it has got a phase, and he has shown how beautifully you can draw the state vector, one arrow over the other. And this is the propagation of states this time. Consider the circle. One quadrant is the Mandra Saptak, Madhya Saptak, Tat Saptak, Atitat Saptak. Atitat Saptak we don't use much. It is used in the Western opera music. And then what to do it? Skud Sa you plot here, and Tibra Sa you plot there. And they're having a frequency factor of 2. And in between, you place the other. Here I have shown 7 swaras, Sarigama Padhani, but there are 12 swaras, considering Shruti and Bikri. And you can complete the other quadrants also. Now, if you say something like this, it could mean a music. Every thought or any daga will have an aroha and avaraha, and you can very much draw a graph like this, and so everything is the frozen music. To conclude, I had realized 3 things. One realization is music narrates stories without using the alphabet. Literature creates music without musical notes, and the ingredients of science in its fundamental form cannot be distinguished from that of music and literature. And that's how all these 3 spheres, science, music, and literature, merged in my case, and that is the unification. And the trigger started from the basic question, what is the color of my room? Thank you.